So let's move on to talking about training program updates. So folks will ask quite a bit about. I have calls pretty much every day speaking with customers about what training we offer, what resources we have, and So I wanted to talk about a couple of different training things. One's an in-person event, and two are programs. And then I'm going to talk about the usual like updates to the Foundry and to the knowledge base and such, just to keep everybody up to date on what's going on. But I thought this was important because I literally every day, in fact, later today, I have a call to talk about training programs, and we're working on improving our materials, PDFs for everything. I have some more PDFs, and just making those available so you can just sort of get to them. So let's talk about training day. So last October, we had an in-person event in Indianapolis. We had a virtual event for Europe, and we thought a bit this year about doing maybe the same thing or something different for this year. And we realized timing wise that we're actually going to shoot more for March of. It's a little tough, the weather in the US, right? Because last year in October, it was just before it's really tough to travel in most areas. I'm in Pennsylvania. Indiana gets winter too, pretty much everywhere here in the top of the US. It becomes really difficult to travel once you're past October. So, and then, summertime, we have a lot of education customers, and maybe it's not the best during the summer when you're preparing for the new school year. So there's limited options, but we've come up with that we're going to see how March 20th and 21st do for an in-person in the US. And whereas last year it was one day of intermediate and advanced topics, the feedback we got from a lot of people was that they wanted the basics, that is something missing. It's getting started with particular features, because we do have a lot of documentation published, but I think before you've used something, it can be um, it can be tough to get started, to get over that initial thing. I'm going to talk about that a little bit when I talk about Foundry updates, but um, so we're going to do an in-person event in the US, and it's not just going to be one day, it's actually going to be a day and a half. Um, and so day one will be something around an 8-hour day of FileWave basics, similar to when we get a new customer. We typically do 8 hours of training. So you're going to kind of go through all those things in that day one together in a room. And for anyone that was in the in person in the US last year, we're going to use the room that we used for the advanced stuff, same location. The advanced room was more like a classroom setup, and the audio was better. The big room, a lot of there were audio things. The screen was not big enough. We definitely learned from that event, and uh, so I think it'll be a good experience. We'll have an evening activity, and then the second day will be a half day, allowing you to travel home afterwards, or if after the event ends you want to hang out and have any kind of chats with anybody, from the FileWave side or other customers, you're welcome to. Um, and so this is what we're thinking. The QR code here, and by the way, the QR codes you'll see throughout this, we're going to send out the links. When we post this to YouTube, you can also get the QR codes, but we're also going to send something out with the various links. So don't worry if you miss something. But this QR code here is for you to express interest. Now, for the US, we have pretty solid plans. The date is picked, the location is picked. So if you're in North America or can get to North America and you have interest, scan this QR code and let us know. It doesn't commit you to going. It's just to get, you know, your interest that you could go if you could secure funding, or you want to get more information. If you're in Europe or Asia, we were still thinking about whether it's an in-person event. We tried to do an in-person event last year. COVID got us and made it impossible. But whatever region you're in, you can scan the QR code, and there's a field on the form that lets you say like what you'd like to learn, which, in the case of Europe or Asia, you might say, I really have an interest in getting together in person and learning FileWave basics, or learning in depth about deploying software to iPads, or whatever it is, because we want to collect that information. Um, to really figure out, what the best plan is, what people would do, because it makes no sense to make an in-person event that would be, let's say, in Switzerland, and nobody would travel to Switzerland, perhaps. So we do want to investigate what people would do. We know that people will go to Indiana here in the U.S. because in October last year we did it, and we think the weather will be equivalent in March. Um, and you can let us know in the form if you would have attended Indiana, but it would have been better in October. Let us know, because we really want to mold this to be, good for you. So feedback is appreciated. Okay, so that's in person, and we really believe that, if you understand the fundamentals, then you're going to be a happier customer, a happier user of FileWave, and more effective with FileWave. FileWave should be a time saver. And I could say that, I've I've used FileWave in the time that I've been here. I actually evaluated FileWave years ago when I was working at a corporation, and used it a little bit. I used the competitor that doesn't exist anymore that works very much like FileWave. And if somebody asks me to deploy something, I can do that pretty quick because, well, I have perhaps 20 years of experience doing the thing. Um, but it's not just IT knowledge, it's, our product, and you should have a solid idea of what our product can do. So training is important, and that's why we wanted to do that basics thing for the US. And even if you're far along, you could benefit from that basics. Now, that in person is good if you're in the US, and good if you want to learn that stuff. We can also deliver remotely this new FileWave Continuity. So here's a problem that comes up also almost on a daily basis. Someone purchases FileWave. You're at WYSIWYG Corporation, and you were there and you purchased FileWave and you got training initially. You leave and somebody else comes in and they're assigned, or you get promoted and you're not in that role anymore. And somebody new is assigned to manage FileWave. That new person, they are they're really stuck. They could use the free resources, but they're a bit stuck. They don't know how to use FileWave when they're coming in. Two, they don't know what you, as the outgoing admin, had set up. They don't really understand what you did. And some of you on this session can probably identify with that story, that you picked up something and you had to pick apart how it was all set up. And that little demo about exclusions and deployments, that plays a part, right? So you have 50 different things assigned to devices. How do you pick apart what each thing does? So we call this FileWave Continuity. It has a PDF about it. We were essentially doing this for the past almost 3 years that I've been here. We do essentially this. This is just giving it a name and 3 standard sizes. And in the PDF, it'll explain like why you'd pick one. And I'll just keep it simple. The 4-hour one is you manage iPads. You just really need to get started on how FileWave's configured, what I have to think about. Pretty easy. Versus at the other end of the spectrum, where we assign 12 hours, which is clearly more than the 8 that I mentioned a brand new customer gets. That is where not only should we train you, but we'll help you pick apart the things that are assigned, and maybe fix some problems that the prior person had in place. Really get you end to end good. So you can definitely be successful in FileWave no matter which way you go. If you're a person that would need FileWave Continuity, if you did the 4 hours, as long as you are willing to look through the Foundry and look through the knowledge base, you can get solid on this. We also have things in Discord like the open office hours. You can get really solid, but if you have the funding, and you can work with us. Doing the 12 hours, we're going to have everything working great really quickly. You're going to see a time to value that's very quick. So think about that, and these PDFs, we're not just sharing with you, we share it with resellers because some of you, I mean, you're already customers, but you know, a new admin comes in and they don't even know that we have this, and they work with a reseller, and the reseller didn't know that we would have this necessarily. That's a tough situation. So we're going to get the PDFs to our partners so that they know to tell you about it. So maybe this would benefit somebody on this call. I think it probably could. There's probably somebody missing out on training, and we could do this globally because this is all remote. Okay. So more along the training, there's also sort of the ongoing, and I've talked about FileWave Assist before if you've been on an Alliance call. There is keeping things on the rails. A new release comes out. Why does it matter to me? FileWave Assist is a program that we do globally, so you can purchase it globally. And you may notice sometimes I write US dollars on things. It's difficult sometimes with conversion rates to post it in Swiss francs and euros and British pounds, etc. So when it's in US dollars, just do a conversion and it's about the same. So for FileWave Assist, this program is sized based on the size of your organization because we figure that changes the level of difficulty. If you have 500 devices you're managing, it's very different than if you have 40,000 devices you're managing. Your needs are going to be different. The level of things that you need are going to be different. So we're not going to charge a person that has 500 devices, as if they had 10,000. So we try to be very reasonable in all of this. And it'll keep you on the rails. You'll get together every month and talk about needs. And we also have materials that are not yet published, but we have them sort of pending. This came up fairly recently where we had CrowdStrike materials put together. Well, when I say put together, I had file sets and scripts and things that I had tinkered with when I helped somebody with CrowdStrike. And then a bunch of tickets came in about CrowdStrike and needing help with it. And so we turned right around and published that. It happens that one of them was a FileWave Assist customer, but we tend to have materials that are in various states of draft or publish. And in FileWave Assist, I think it's a very good opportunity to share with us, hey, I'm trying to do this thing. There's nothing in the knowledge base. I already looked about this topic. Is there some way that you can help me? And then whether you're working with Andrew or Emma or Sean or Romel, they can check with the team and see, does anyone have a draft of anything? Are we almost ready to publish it? And then you get access to those materials as well as all of our knowledge about how APIs work, how a FileWave server should work. So, that health check aspect of it, annual maintenance stuff. If you really struggle with renewing your APNS for for Apple devices, we can sort of show you the article and help you if you're stuck. There is a mention of support ticket escalation management. And I think that this point might confuse people sometimes. I just wanted to clarify this, that the FileWave Assist is the professional services team and training, not the support team. So where we interact with support, though, is we will try for FileWave Assist customers to look for cases where you were trying to work on it with support and maybe you didn't realize, but support had asked for some follow-up information, or you did realize, but you didn't know how to get access to the thing that they wanted and you just didn't get around to following up. We might see that ticket that's stuck and we could offer tips or maybe help you directly to get that thing. And it's mostly about getting you unstuck. So that's where we tie into support, but support is still support. This is completely separate program to make everything better from a best practices and getting the most value from the product. And support is still all about, this thing broke. And sometimes folks will reach out to support and say, can you help me deploy Microsoft Defender on my Macs, right? and support is mostly there for break fix. Now, sometimes they'll have some knowledge and they'll try and help you out, but really the differentiation between support and pro services is support is if it's broken, or I can't find that bit of documentation, or that documentation doesn't exist. And pro services is, you know, I need to accomplish this task, and it's more IT and using FileWave, not that it's broken. So I don't know. I just wanted to point that out. Maybe it'll help people be more clear on that. So FileWave Assist is a good ongoing program. You would use it basically forever, would be the hope. And it would have training and best practices. And I think it's really great thing. We have about, I think the current count is 120 customers that are doing it. So it is ongoing. Okay. So those are training programs, and we do have other professional services things, things like health checks, custom scripting. There's all sorts of things we can do, and you can reach out to me anytime. It will likely be that you'll have a way to contact me in the follow-up email that comes. But for anyone that doesn't know, I'm always in Discord. We're going to talk about Discord. But it's my first name dot last name at filewave.com. So josh.levitsky at filewave.com. You can reach out to me. Professional.services at filewave.com also goes to me and my team. So you can email either one with any question, even if you want to know, like, could you do this? Or here's something that came up once. In Japan, we had a customer that wanted training on FileWave in Japanese. And we don't have somebody in pro services that speaks Japanese, but I knew that there is a partner in Japan that we have worked with before. And so I was able to line them up together and make an introduction, and it all worked out. Our partner did the training, customer was happy. And so sometimes if you need to make a connection, we can do that. Okay, so training resource updates. So this is like the things like knowledge base and Foundry. So for the knowledge base, there is a new watch feature. So if you use the knowledge base back when we were on Confluence on premise, you were able to watch articles so that you could get updates. And you lost that when we went to the new knowledge base, but I knew that it was coming back. So let me bring up I'm just going to show this actually. So the first thing is we do have an article here, this using email to stay up to date. This has all the steps that are in it. So you can find this anytime right on the main page. But when you sign into the knowledge base, you pick login. There's a little blurb here. If for some reason you can't log in, there's a note that you can contact customer experience and they can fix it so you can log in to the knowledge base, to Foundry, to really any resource that has a login within FileWave. So I'm going to pick to log in. And I have a customer account. So this should look very similar to what you see as a customer. So, I'll use an example that I think applies to pretty much everyone. So we have this default TCP in UDP usage, right? This changes sometimes from version to version, and you really want to stay on top of, did it change? So there's a watch button here. If I click watch, then by default, it will watch for new pages and updates. So if this gets edited by somebody, I'll get an email and it'll tell me that this changed. If I wanted to change it, you'll notice the watch button goes away. This lets you change it. If you pick ignore, it's like picking to unwatch it. If you wanted to know about comments are actually a thing that I'll show too. It's not a bullet point on the presentation, but that is also fairly new. So comments are interesting. If you're signed in, you can actually comment on articles. So I can add a comment and I can hit save, and then anyone else can see that comment and reply to it. So this can be a way to provide feedback or questions on an article. it's not for the immediate thing because you're probably opening a support case on that, but I'll give an example. So the article about using super on Mac OS, the documentation might be complete, but you might be seeking a particular example. And so you could add a comment and say, like, I'd really like to know how to accomplish this. And either somebody from FileWave might reply or another customer might reply. It's a really easy way to collaborate directly on the article. Um, or if you're kind of an expert on how Nudge works or Super works or Winget works, you can add your knowledge here and we could incorporate that into the KD article so we can all kind of help each other. It's just another way to collaborate. You can only do it when you're signed in. That way we avoid spam from hitting there from the internet. So you sign in and comment as you, and that is watching articles. Now, the other bullet point on the presentation, and Tobias mentioned it too about ChatGPT, we have this little chat thing here, and you can ask it just about anything. You know, do you support Mac OS Sonoma? Right? And this is trained on the knowledge base, basically. And we've tried to teach it, to only answer things as if they're about FileWave. I can see all the diagnostics for the chat system, and I'll just give you guys maybe some tips because I'll see questions asked in a way that doesn't get the answer that you want. So someone might just say DEP, that might be all they put in the question. And you'll get an answer that is about DEP, but it may not answer the thing you want. So think about it like you're talking to a person and ask your question in a complete way, as complete as you can think of. Like, how can I change the wallpaper on an iOS device using FileWave? Make it like a complete thought, and you'll get the best answers from this. And you can do it in another language as well. So if your native language is German and you prefer to write in German, you can, and it will answer you back in German. The knowledge base article itself will still be in English. We don't yet have anything to natively translate, but Microsoft Edge actually has a thing where you can select text on a web page and pick to translate it. I use that all the time. So that could be a way for text in the article to get translated if you just prefer that it be in another language. But the chatbot will chat with you in other languages, and maybe that can remove some friction, depending. The other bit here is if you get a bad answer, you can give it a thumbs down. If you get a good answer, give it a thumbs up. It does help train the system. I also can see things that are flagged and can then help to improve the system because I continue to work on this constantly. One thing I look for is things that people ask about that it has no answer for, because that means we have no knowledge base article about it. So we'll add more and more articles based on finding knowledge gaps. So it's really great for that. And sometimes I'll test it. I'll ask it various questions to see how it would answer. Okay, so we're using ChatGPT 4 at the moment. And as things evolve, we will keep on improving, perhaps using ChatGPT 4 with more memory if longer conversations are happening. But yeah, so the knowledge base is getting better and better. And I showed you an example for watching a page. I should point out this one other bit. So pages are great, right? But there's a concept called a book. In the knowledge base, it's like a library. There are shelves, and then there are books within the shelves, right? So if I go to the Apple shelf, all these books relate to Apple things. I wish that you could watch a whole shelf. You can't yet. But let's say you're really curious whenever we publish like a new macOS recipe. So you can actually watch at the book level. And if any new articles appear within this book, then you'll see it. And perhaps the the most relevant example that I think everyone could benefit from is our download page, or this is our download book. You could watch it, and when we have a new release, you would know immediately. Or if we make an edit to this, you would know immediately. So that might be something helpful. Okay. So that's the knowledge base. So then Discord. So Discord has been growing, continues to grow. I've seen more and more helpful conversations with customers helping other customers. And the QR code here that says chat on Discord, that can help you easily join Discord. Discord's about the only service that doesn't use our single sign-on, because Discord doesn't really have a hook to do that. So Discord, you just create a normal Discord account. And we have free training sessions here. So kind of along that training theme, if you feel unsure about things, we have these training sessions. And if you can't make it to the training session, we post on our YouTube channel, such as youtube.com/FileWave, or you can use the QR code there to get to it. We'll post the videos of those training sessions. So there's a best practices session on taking care of your FileWave server. There was a getting started with Grafana. There is separately a patching Mac OS and then a patching Windows session. Andreas, who's in Europe in FileWave, he has a session monthly for German speakers. So really great if you want to get together. That's in Discord. We also, in past Alliance sessions, I've kept saying that we have open office hours that is at 10 a.m. once a month in North America. Anyone's welcome. And we do have folks, that will join from Europe, because 10 a.m. does overlap with the workday in Europe. It's not ideal, but it overlaps with the end of day. But it was really terrible for Asia. So we now have 8 a.m. Singapore time. Actually, it's either tomorrow or the next day. You'll see it in Discord. But tomorrow night for me, so Friday at 8 a.m. Singapore time, there will be the first open office hour session that Rommel on my team will run, and I'll be on there too, in case maybe it's extra busy. So that will be a monthly thing. So if you work an hour that would be compatible with 8 a.m. Singapore time on a Friday, you could join those sessions, and that's now 2 opportunities. And we want to add a time that's kind of in the middle of the day in Europe, so that we could make it very accessible globally. So look for there to be maybe a 3rd session each month, so that everybody could get help. Okay. Separately from Discord, and I'm really a fan personally of Discord. I think it's great for keeping in touch. It's very flexible, can do things like having those training sessions. We also have the Alliance forums, which is a web-based forum, which has also been seeing growth. I'd say Discord has been growing faster than the Alliance forums, but the Alliance forums does continue to have a stream of questions coming in and people joining it. The forums are good because Google indexes them. So if you ever Google something, then you may end up on the Alliance forums for the answer. And the more and more that grows, I would say there are a couple of people that are both in Discord and the forums. Whatever your preference is, we just want to support both. I think we have enough customers that both can be equally good. And if there's a really interesting topic that shows up in one, we try to share it over in the other, so that nobody misses out. But I also recently added an AI chatbot to it, just for the purposes of searching through chats, because I'm not a fan of traditional search in a forum or even in a knowledge base, because it assumes that you use specific words. And AI chatbots are great because they'll try and look at the meaning of your question and show you material. So you can check out the AI chatbot there. It works the same way as the knowledge base, but it's only trained on the forum. So you can't really ask it things about the knowledge base. It's meant for interrogating the forums. So that's how I have it now. And you can always let me know what you think of it. Maybe I should have it know about the knowledge base too. I'd be happy to get feedback. The Foundry. So this is where, again, we have those onboarding videos, quick videos that I've talked about on past Alliance events, because at the beginning of this year they were added, and there's been a couple of videos added since I first talked about it. So there are more topics, and Sean continues to work on the Foundry and the Foundry content. So you should check it out, no matter whether you're very expert at FileWave or you're brand new. I think that there is material for everyone. So check it out, and again, give us feedback. You sign into it using that same single sign-on system. So Foundry access is free. So all we need is for you to reach out to customer experience if you can't log in. And I saw in the chat that Jonathan Kane may have shared the email address for customer experience. So very easy to reach out to them. We just need you in the single sign-on system, so we'll create a contact for you and anyone in your organization that you'd like. The other improvements that we made, I realized that, so we have customers, we have employees, we have partners, we have people that are evaluating our software. I realized that there were some scenarios where you couldn't necessarily get to all the materials. So I made some changes, trying to leverage how Moodle is the software that runs the Foundry. I tried to leverage the access control methods that they recommend, and it's really designed for universities and K through 12 to set up classes. So you may notice when you go into a section of the Foundry that it asks you if you want to enroll. Just click the enroll button, you'll be right in. It doesn't ask you for information, it just wants you to sort of say you want to be in that course. And I'll keep looking at ways that maybe I could skip that dialogue because it doesn't serve such a purpose. But you'll see that was an improvement in that you can now actually get to all the materials. I believe beyond a doubt you can get to everything. And then the other thing was, you might start watching a video, and the video could be 10 minutes long, and suddenly you pause it because someone came to the door and you forget. And when you come back to it, you can't really remember where you were at. Maybe you closed the window before you really tracked where you were at. Now that video, because you started watching it, it would be marked as viewed or completed. That's a little tough because you didn't really complete it, and you probably want to know that you didn't complete it. So we're changing how we mark that you viewed content. So you're going to see this phase in where every item does not automatically flip to viewed, and you can toggle it from viewed to unviewed, which is a good way. If you realize I really want to watch that again and I want to remember, you can mark it as you didn't complete it yet. So I think that's a good improvement as well. And through your feedback, that's how we make these changes. Okay, now the big, very interesting topic. And I saw somebody asked in the chat about the Alma Linux. So we had originally, we've been talking about this internally for a very long time, probably for as long as I've been at FileWave, because we knew that CentOS's End of Life was coming. And our plan, honestly, was to go to Alma Linux. Alma Linux was binary compatible with CentOS 8. It would be very easy to actually convert a CentOS 7 device to take it up to CentOS Stream and then over to Alma Linux. There's a whole conversion process, and we even had a script to convert a server. And then, I don't know how much everybody follows Linux news, but CentOS is downstream of Red Hat Enterprise. So CentOS benefits from the work done to build Red Hat Enterprise. And Alma Linux similarly benefits from that work. Now, Red Hat, of course, benefits from the entire open source community to make Red Hat Enterprise Linux. But they do have employees that work on what is Red Hat Enterprise Linux, or RHEL, you'll hear it called. So they were not happy that CentOS should exist, which is why they made CentOS Stream. CentOS Stream is not good for production at all. That was by design. they have said that they're cutting off, I mean, basically everybody downstream, which is like, um, Rocky Linux, Alma Linux, I believe Euro Linux. There's a few others that are downstream from RHEL, and they're basically cut off, which means, an update for OpenSSL comes out, Red Hat Enterprise Linux packages it. That cannot be used by the folks in the Alma Linux team. So now they're left to package up everything kind of on their own. That is a big risk because they go from a model where they basically ingest all the packages, they're binary compatible with Red Hat, to now this like we're just on our own, and can't do anything, unless the community supports them. And so there's a big question. Both Rocky Linux and Alma Linux, they are pretty adamant that they will continue to survive, and they have been doing good work, but it's just a risk that we can't pass on to customers, that because things could take a turn for the worse, and Alma Linux could decide that they can't continue, and that would be kind of awful if we migrated everybody to Alma Linux and then Alma Linux was no more. That would be, we just couldn't do it. So we started to look, what should we do? Should we take a chance with Alma Linux, or should we go to Ubuntu, for instance? Ubuntu is a pretty good organization. Ubuntu is based on Debian. And then we said, well, why not Debian themselves? They've been around for 30 years. They have supported themselves. They're not part of a corporation, and they've managed to support themselves. They're very stable and very modern. So the choice was made to go Debian. That was what we figured out. Now, you can't convert a CentOS box to a Debian box. So that's where I'm going to talk about this roadmap. But basically, you can stand up a Debian box and your content can move to that Debian box and FileWave can work. What we're doing right now is we're building those Deb installers. We're going to be building appliances. That's where we're at this sort of present phase of things. Our goal is for 15.2, which everybody knows we do quarterly releases. We just did 15.1, probably in the November-ish time frame. 15.2 comes out, and the goal is that when 15.2 comes out, or shortly after, we will release Debian appliances and Debian installers. So what it could look like is, let's say November 1st, FileWave 15.2 comes out. It will release for CentOS 7. It will release for macOS, just like normal. Nothing changes there. Your current server continues to work. You can upgrade your current server to 15.2. We're not going to suddenly say you have to switch over to a new platform suddenly. We will publish the Debian 12 supported things, either exactly when 15.2 comes out or shortly after. They might not line up 100%. When we release the appliances and the Deb installers, a new customer that joins us, let's say you join in December, why would you set up a CentOS box? You would set up a Debian appliance and just be started with Debian. So that gets us already some users on Debian. Support gets some experience with some tickets coming from customers on Debian, and we get a little bit of traction in the Debian world. And what we found so far with development building packages is that it's been very successful on Debian. We think that it could also possibly be successful on Ubuntu, that if you liked Ubuntu, that potentially you could run it there. But we're committing to Debian. We're just kind of seeing, could it just easily work on Ubuntu as well, because Ubuntu is downstream of Debian. So that is what we're doing. And for you as an existing customer, so what will you do? So there's a couple of paths. If you're on macOS and you're going to stay on macOS for your FileWave server, there's nothing for you to do. You could stay on macOS if you'd like. If you are on CentOS 7 and on-premise, then you could either do this migration to Debian, which we're going to provide a tool and information, and support will know how to answer questions about it. Professional services will offer sort of the paid hand-holding experience. Anyone that is working with professional services, we can do that. And we're probably going to be a little more generous with professional services helping for free in cases where we realize that something is not really necessarily your fault that it's not working. Maybe it's our fault. I hate to use the word fault, but you know what I mean. That maybe our migration script doesn't handle a particular unique thing, and we should definitely help you. We want everyone to be successful with this. So we're going to do our best to help everybody get from CentOS 7 to Debian, or I think PN mentioned about the hosted offering that we also have. So we can also run your server for you. And if you choose, you could transition either from macOS or CentOS 7 to our hosted offering, where you don't have to worry about backups. You don't have to worry about doing upgrades. We take care of the server. It honestly makes it easier when you're working on a support ticket because we have direct sort of control of that server. So we could gather, it makes it easier for you because we can gather some logs, help with troubleshooting a bit easier. So that could be a choice. And when you go into our hosted environment, then the whole move to Debian is a non-issue. We're handling everything on our back end. So that is another avenue. So you could stay Mac OS, you could move CentOS to Debian with our help or just with the articles, or you could move from CentOS to hosted. And we're going to be very flexible. You're going to see right at the beginning of the year, maybe it'll come sooner, but we want to make sure we can test and QA everything, about the migration tool, which will give you 6 solid months to do the migration. Honestly, you could do the migration. I wouldn't do it on June 30th, but you could technically do it on June 30th and you'd be okay, because CentOS 7 should get patches right up until the last day. But what we see with every OS, when Windows XP was end of life, or Windows 7 or old Mac OSs, there's always exploits that come out right after. So you will want to make sure that if you feel like you haven't seen a communication, ask, because you definitely should see communications, especially right at the beginning of the year, about this tool and about whatever help we're offering and whatever options there are. We're going to make sure to communicate that. And then June 30th will come and you don't want to be on CentOS 7 anymore. We wanted to give you more than 6 months. The Alma Linux thing was really what did us in. We would have rather given you 8 months to a year, but this thing with Alma Linux just happened a couple of months ago, and then we had to change gears, and it's a new packaging system and a whole new OS, and we're a little bit excited because it makes us do some changes that we would have liked to do anyway. So there are some positives to this. And Debian is a very mature OS. So that is the story. So I would say don't worry. And don't worry if you haven't heard something, to this effect. I just wanted to explain it. And know that when you see Debian mentioned when 15.2 comes out or shortly after, and then when you see the follow-ups at the beginning of the year, if you feel like you don't know what to do, you reach out to support and you just ask. Say, I have this, I don't know what to do. And we will make sure that everybody internally at FileWave knows what your options are. Okay? And then I will hand it back to Willem for a moment.
Yep. Thank you, Josh. Great overview so far. I wanted to quickly talk about our customer referral family. This is a new program for us that we rolled out a couple of months ago. Chad Wall on my team has been leading the effort to really build tighter relationships with our customers, who I more refer to as partners. So far we have 17 organizations who have joined this family that we're building. It's really customers referring their friends and family, so to speak, to join FileWave. So we're really trying to get through word of mouth and through direct referrals from customers, more folks using FileWave. And so far, this has been very successful. We obviously appreciate your partnership with us immensely. We have some incredible customers out there, and really trying to plug into that as much as we can to help build the FileWave momentum in the market. So as you can see, obviously, we really want you to share your experiences. So videos and written testimonials, our marketing team is happy to capture those from you. And then obviously, we'd love to have you leave an online review for us. We're really trying to capture more of those. Obviously, G2, Capterra, you can see the names up there. We're happy to provide links to that if you need that type of help. We can get you directed there. What you can get potentially if you do refer us a customer who ends up being a signed FileWave customer is our FileWave certified admin course, a $1,500 value. Very excited to get folks on board that way as well, and obviously get more training and become better at using FileWave. The QR code on the right, feel free to scan that and let us know your interest. There's a form there that you can fill in, and then from my team, Chad Wall, will reach out to you to set up a meeting and take further steps. And that's it. Thank you. Back to you, Josh.